Welcome back. For this week's Design on Daytime segment, I'm joined by Michael from our sponsors at Ethan Allen of Western New York with some frequently asked design questions. Welcome, Michael. Thanks so much for coming in.
Thanks for having me back.
Well, Ethan Allen of Western New York has been serving our community for a long time, so there are some common questions that customers have, and we're going to take a look at some. Is that okay with you?
Great.
Okay, so starting off, if someone is looking for a chandelier for their dining room, how do they know what size to get and the height of which they should hang it?
Okay, yeah, this is a pretty common mistake that you see. Sometimes they're hung too low or the piece is too small, too big, obviously for the space, but there's a couple good rules of thumb. So for a chandelier size, if you take the size of your room and say your room's 12 by 15, you add those two together, 27, that's about the width of the diameter of the chandelier that you want to use in the space. It kind of gives you a guideline. A couple inches here or there won't matter, but that gives you a good guideline to shoot for. Same thing with if you have a round table. 48-inch round table, you want to subtract about a foot off of that, so it's appropriately sized for that table. So you'd use a 36-inch round fixture over that. So that gives you an idea of what size to use. Now the height varies depending on the size of the chandelier. At a minimum, you want to go about 30 inches. So from the tabletop to the bottom of the chandelier, you want to have about 30 inches. That way it's comfortable if you're sitting at it, you're not ducking and trying to look around a chandelier or a fixture. And then as the piece gets a little bit larger, you can go up a couple inches, as your ceilings get a little bit higher as well.
That's true. Okay, good tips for that. Let's talk about what people should do if they want to revamp their look, but they can't afford new furniture.
Okay. That's pretty easy to do. What you do is kind of go shopping in your own home. It's easy to change things up, like change small things like pillows or change the artwork over the sofa, maybe switch out some lamps, but also look at your other rooms in the house and maybe move pieces from room to room. It's amazing how when you do that, you can get a whole different look. A lot of times in the design studio, what we'll do is we'll change some rooms around, we'll move some artwork around, and you'd be amazed that clients come in and they say, oh, are these all new pieces? And it's really just some of the same pieces we've had, we've just used them differently.
Nice. Okay, that's a great hack and save some money.
Yeah.
Now for our parents out there with little ones that have kids, and with toys, and they get everywhere. And they want to have storage, but they still want to make sure that their house is still looking stylish.
Right.
What tips do you have for that?
Yeah, the toys tend to take over, whether it's kids or pets.
Yes.
They tend to take over a little bit, and the secret to that is to make it easy. Because no matter how you think you're going to have it organized and all your ducks in a row, you want to make it easy so that it's easy to dump things in. So you take some bookcases and add some fabric bins maybe to the bottom or some baskets. That way it's easy for the kids to kind of take it and dump the things in, and it stays nice and neat.
Yeah.
A lot of times there's space to either side of a fireplace. Maybe take a couple small chests that you have a series of drawers that's, again, easy for them to open and close. A credenza behind the sofa is a great thing with some shelving in it that you can stash some stuff. So it's all hidden. It's not necessarily neat behind the closed doors, but at least it's all hidden and everything stays looking nice.
I'm a big fan of the bins. That's where all of family's toys go, and they get everywhere. And then it makes it easy to just throw them.
And if you train him well, he can put his own toys away.
And that's the key. I don't have that training yet, but we'll get there. Now, if someone is hesitating in working with an interior designer due to cost or concern they won't like what the designer picks for them, what would you say?
Well, if the interior designer is doing their job properly, they're really listening to their client. They're making sure that whatever the client's ultimate goal is, that's what their ultimate goal is, not what their style is personally, but what the client's style is. So it's really about listening to the client. So if that's done properly, the end result usually is something that the client is very, very happy with, and they don't have to worry about not liking something. But it's also a collaboration. If there's something they don't like, you certainly want to have your input and get to a point of having a space that you really enjoy. And a designer can really save money in the end, because they're not only going to ask what your likes are and what you ultimately want to have, but how much you want to put into the project.
Right.
And then they can work within that to get the most bang for your buck.
Right.
Because sometimes you just go out and you buy pieces and you end up with things that don't really coordinate and ends up costing you more in the long run.
Well, this kind of goes back to one of the other questions when you mentioned we can rearrange things by just, putting new artwork up. over the sofa. For the artwork that people are hanging, what are your tips for the size and how high they should hang it?
Okay. So for a sofa, a good tip is really keep it about 2/3 of the size of the piece you're hanging it over. So, if your sofa's 90 inches, your artwork can take up somewhere to 50 to 60 inch range. So you're really taking up that about 2/3 of the space. And you really want to look out what else is in the room. If you have a lot of single items, maybe you do a pair of pieces of wall decor over the sofa instead of another single item. Maybe you change up the shape. If you have a sofa that has some shape to the back, you don't want to do one single large piece over it that's going to interrupt that shape. Maybe a couple pieces side by side would be nice. So you want to look at the proportion of it, but then not also the shape of it that goes over the piece. You want to keep it about 6 to 8 inches above the back of the sofa.
And I remember you telling me this, do not hang a mirror over the sofa.
Yeah, nobody wants to see the back of your head. Yeah.
Especially if it's bald.
Right.
Well, if someone has light oak trim around their home, should all of their wood furniture match?
No. That's a common misconception that we'll have clients a lot of times come in and say we have a specific color of trim in our home. Does all of our furniture, our wood pieces have to match that same color? And absolutely not. You absolutely don't want it to match. You want to have some contrast. What you want to pay attention to is if it's a warmer kind of yellow reddish undertone wood, then introduce other woods that have those warmer colors to it. If it has maybe more of a gray undertone to it, then introduce some other wood tones that have maybe a cooler color to it. But you want it to actually complement it, not match it. The worst thing is to try to match it and then you miss. Then it doesn't, it really doesn't look good.
Yeah. Michael, you've given us some great tips today, so thank you so much for coming in. Viewers, if you would like to learn more about all of what they have going on, you can visit their showroom on Sheridan Drive or visit their website at ethanallen.com and talk to someone on their design team. Thanks again for coming in, Michael.
Thanks, Chelsea.